Thank you all for tuning in. Now, I can't promise you the outcome that you're gonna get from watching this, but what I can tell you, if you apply what you're about to learn, this will change your financial future. If you're here, it's probably because you're ready for change. And what you're gonna learn in tonight's training will do just that. So if taking back control of your money isn't enough to keep you glued to this screen for the next 90 minutes, I think it's time to reassess your priorities. And tonight, we've got a special guest. My good friend Brian is gonna be doing the training, and here's what you can expect to learn. Number one, you're gonna learn how to take back control of your money. And you're gonna do that by learning how to be the bank. Number two, you're gonna learn how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses. And you can do that without working harder, without working longer, and without taking on any additional risk. And number three, you're gonna learn how to get all the money back for every single car you will ever buy, drive, and own. That's exactly what you're gonna learn in tonight's training, so get ready, get set, let's go.
Take back control.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday? All right. Hey, everybody. Brian Fouts here, and welcome to the presentation. All right. We'll go ahead and get rolling here. So as we go through this presentation, by the way, this is going to be interactive. It's going to be live. So use that chat box or use the Q&A box as well inside or to ask questions as we go through this. I am going to be answering questions live. So this is, once again, the more interaction we have, the more fun it will be. So go ahead and once again, use that chat box, use that Q&A box as we go through this presentation. All right. So let me ask you guys a question right off the bat. What are three things in life that we want to control? Three things. There's three things in life. Now, there's a lot more things, of course, we want, but there's three main things that, in my experience, that we want to control in life. So give me one of the things you think that we should control. Hey, Frank, how you doing, man? Our time, absolutely. Our time. So Patrick Clark said time, health, money, future. Health is a good one, yeah. Money, how we use our time, yeah. So as an example, so one of the first ones I always say is, right? It's money, right? We want to control money. And during this presentation, that is one of the things we're going to be talking about is how do you control money? Because if you can control money, what can you also control? You can control time, okay? Now, for me, by the way, personally, time is the one thing that I want to control the most. So I have structured my life so that I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. And so I'm doing the presentation. I just moved in. I don't even have my office set up, but I'm doing this right now with you guys. I've done this presentation in a motorhome while traveling across the country. I've done this in a lot of different places, but I want to control time. But in order to control time, I have to control money. That makes sense? So that's one of the things that I do control. Now, there's one thing above all that I believe you have to control before these first two things. Mark says taxes. Yeah, I don't mind paying taxes, but I sure like paying less a lot more. Yep, money buys time, exactly. So there's one thing above all else that we must control if we want to control time and money, and that is our mind, our mindset. Because how we think about money, how we are taught about money, how we are subconsciously programmed to think about money and time is going to make a big difference in the results we get in life. That makes sense? Okay. So during this presentation, I'm going to be challenging your mindset around money, how we think about money. So I want you to keep an open mindset, knowing that we are programmed to think about it a certain way that's based upon experiences and in life and all that kind of stuff. So just keep an open mind. That's all I want. That's one thing I want to ask. Okay. Now, this is a quote that we here at the Money Multiplier, we really love this quote. And this quote is by Will Rogers. And it says, the problem in America isn't so much what people don't know, it's what people think they know that just ain't so. Okay. Now, that's a very powerful quote when you start to really break it down and think about it. And here's why. So think about this. Let's just say that here in the United States, okay, or Canada, let's say you put 100 18-year-old kids into a room and you ask every single one of those kids, where will you be when you're retired, when you're like, 65 years old? What are they going to say? They're not going to say, I'm going to be broke or I'm going to not have any money. I'm going to be poor. No, they're going to say, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to have lots of money. They're going to say all those kinds of things. But here's the thing. Fast forward to retirement age, let's say 65, of those 118-year-olds, only five of them will be financially secure at the age of retirement. That means that 95% of them are not going to be financially secure, cannot retire comfortably are going to be financially challenged. So 5% are going to be financially secure, not wealthy, by the way, just secure. So the question is, do you want to be one of the 5% of those kids or the 95%? Now, if you're here on this presentation, obviously we want to be one of those five, right? So I mean, give me a one or in the yes or a yes in the chat box if you want to be one of the 5% or one of the 95%. Like I'm going to assume we want to be one of those 5%, right? Because that's what this is about. We want to be financially secure. We want to be financially, safe in retirement age. That makes sense? Yeah, Leroy, a one. Yes, exactly. Right. So we want to be one of those 5%, right? Now, that number that I just gave you right there is not a random number. In fact, that 5% comes from the Social Security Administration, where they say 5 out of 100 people will be financially secure at retirement age. That is coming from the Social Security Administration here in the U.S. So that's not something I just picked out of there. That's a real thing. It's a real stat. So keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. Now, that being said, who am I? I'm going to just do a quick little who Brian Fouts is. All right. So I followed that traditional path in life. I went to Washington State University. So for those of you around this area, go Cougs. I got a degree in construction management and business. That's what I did for about 13 or 14 years. I did not like it. It was not a very fun career. And so I eventually changed. I got out of that, became an entrepreneur. But that journey, I call this the hard way. What do I mean by the hard way? Okay. I was raised, lower class, my, great family, all that kind of stuff. My parents are still together, all that. But it was, we used to have to start a fire in the house in the morning to get it warm because we didn't want to pay for the heating bill, all that kind of stuff. And I was taught to follow that traditional path in life. Go to school, get good grades, get a job. And I did. I got a corporate America job. I had that 401k, or as I call it, 401 chaos. My buddy Andy Tanner, he has a book called 401 Chaos, but that's what I called that, right? And I had that house and I had that growing family and I had all the things that came along with it, right? The debt, the car loans. But I was told that I had the American dream, the white picket fence, all that kind of stuff. But I was not happy. I was very gosh, unsatisfied, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And I felt like it was the American nightmare, to be honest. Because I felt like I was drowning. And I was at a doctor's office this one time. This is back in my late 20s, early 30s, I think, and there was this magazine sitting on the little coffee table in the waiting room, and it was a financial magazine. And I opened it up to this random article, and it said that the average millionaire knows their net worth, like they know how much they're worth. And I realized I don't know my net worth. So when I got home, I went and that's the piece of paper right there. I did the math on it. I lost the paper, but I have a picture of it. I took a picture of it. But I did the math, and I was worth a negative amount of money after working for over a decade in this industry. And I did the math again and said, hey, if I continue this, I'm going to be worth less and less every single year because I'm going to be drowning in debt. And I was like, what the, beep. Right? I was like, what's going on here? Made no sense. It didn't make any sense to me. And then what happened was, so I had a catalyst. So my grandfather he was my idol. I love this guy, man. And he was a coach at the local high school. He coached my dad, his son. He coached my brother. He was a baseball coach and a history teacher. He was a pillar of the community, right? And I looked up to him. And he worked really hard up until age like 66, something like that, because he wanted to retire and go live the good life. So he worked really hard to get to that point. And he did. He retired. He bought a motorhome with my grandmother, and they traveled around going to sporting events for my family, for my cousins and me and stuff. But then not even like 2 years later, he got really sick. He got Parkinson's disease, he got leukemia, and he passed away. And it really had a massive impact on me because I realized that, wait a second, you work all this time to retire and live the good life, and yet he only got a sliver of it, a sliver of that good life before he passed away. And I realized I want to live my life today. I want to do it today. So that's one of the big things that changed my trajectory in life. I left that industry and I started businesses. I started buying businesses. I started raising capital. And of course, anybody can say anything on the internet, but this is one of my businesses. This is back in 2021. This is the one that I acquired in 2016. It did a couple $1 million in revenue. It was an Inc. 5000 business. And I've owned lots of businesses, and some have done well, some have not done well, but to be honest. But, I've done a lot of fun things. But this business right here, this business led me to the strategy we're going to be talking about here today. But ultimately, as I said, control, right? I want to control my time. And that has allowed me to do a lot of really fun things in life. And so I'm a car guy, so you can see I have some cars there. Some of those are not mine, but the classic ones in the lower left, that's my Mercury Cougar. I still own that car, but I've had a lot of fun experiences, and I think life is about experiences. And by chasing this, not this dream, but by going after some certain things, infinite banking being one of the concepts we're going to talk about, has led me to having a lot of cool experiences. And it's even led me to actually speaking about this concept to other people. And so this is actually one of the events that I go to. I used to be a part of this mastermind. I would teach this concept to very successful families and stuff. And what I found is that, man, when you get up to those upper levels, a lot of them know about this strategy, about this concept. So I'm pretty excited to be sharing this with you all here today. Now, I want you to understand one thing though. This concept is not new. It's not a new thing. It's been around for a long time. And so who else has also been talking about this strategy? Okay. Well, Robert Kiyosaki, you guys probably heard of him. He talks about it in his book called Second Chance. And by the way, I work with a lot of Robert's advisors, so that I know them personally. That's how I learned about this. So one of his mentors was my mentor when it came to this concept. Kind of cool. Tony Robbins, in his book Money Master the Game, he also talks about this strategy. Then, of course, you have the cornerstone of this called Becoming Your Own Banker: Unlock the Infinite Banking Concept by R. Nelson Nash. I recommend that book. It's one of the good ones on this strategy. Then you have Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery by Brent Kessler and Chris Naugle. Those are two of my mentors, and I work with them, of course, to this day. And that's a great book. And then we also got the Private Money Guide by Chris Naugle as well that talks about this. Now, if you guys want to get the Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery and some other resources for free, just let me know, and I'll put in a link here a little bit later on with my email address and my call link. And if you guys want, you can click that and get those these books, the bottom ones, for free PDF wise. So yeah, so recommend those books. But yeah, there's some other books too. Now, who else has used this strategy throughout history? Okay, this is very interesting. So Jim Harbaugh, however you say his name, but Cash Value Life Insurance makes Harbaugh college football's top paid coach. So they use this concept to pay for his bonuses and his salary. So it's a very versatile concept. This gentleman, what's his name again? I always forget his name. Joe Biden. So when he became president of the United States, he had to disclose this, but he has 4 of these policies. At Disneyland. So Walt Disney, when he used it, borrowed from it, and started Disneyland. So without this concept, Disneyland, as we know it, of course, may not actually have existed. Ray Kroc, so McDonald's. So when Ray Kroc took over McDonald's from the McDonald's brothers, that's how I kind of describe it, if you've ever seen the movie or read his book. But he essentially used this concept to pay for salaries, for cash flow for McDonald's as he was growing that thing for the first couple years or 8 years. So without this concept, McDonald's, as we know it, may also not have existed. The Pampered Chef. So she borrowed $3,000 from one of these concepts, one of these strategies, to start the Pampered Chef, and then of course it was sold for like what, $700 million or 1.5 billion. I mean, just an insane amount of money. So pretty cool. And then wealthy families. So a lot of wealthy families use this because it's called the family banking method. The JPs, the Morgans and Chases, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, and now you. So anybody can use this concept as long as we understand how it works. But yeah, lots and lots of people have used this. Now, before we get into it, we need to understand what infinite banking will do for you. What will it help you accomplish in life? So here's some things that you got to be aware of that this can do for you. So one, it creates generational wealth, guaranteed, tax-free, by the way, day one. Day one. So not year 30, not year 20, but day one, you have generational wealth guaranteed tax-free. And I don't know of any other strategy or vehicle that does what this does when it comes to generational wealth. I did a presentation here last week on that exact topic right there. Pretty powerful. It also allows your money to grow uninterrupted, compounded for the rest of your life with guarantees. Once again, I like the word guarantees, right? I don't know of any other vehicle, by the way, that grows uninterrupted, compounded with guarantees while also having a lot of other benefits. So very, very powerful in that regard as well. It takes control of your money away from the big banks and Wall Street and puts that control into your hands. Okay. Remember, we talked about control. Okay. Control of money, exactly that. It protects your money from lawsuits, from bankruptcy, from divorce, and even creditors, not credits, creditors in most states, by the way. So we always want to protect our money. One of the best ways to keep your money and control your money is to protect it. All right. And then, of course, it allows you to be the bank for things that you may normally use a bank for. So think of things such as college, investing, real estate investing, cars, homes, investments, retirement, all while still having all the benefits listed above. So what I want you to understand is this does not do one of these things or two of these things. It does all of them at the exact same time. So give me a one, give me a Y in that chat box if you want to have all of these things in your life. Do you think it would help you build wealth to have all of the things going on in your life, right? Terry says yes. Patrick says yes. One, exactly. So having all of these things is one of the best ways to actually build wealth and have that control. Okay, there you go. Absolutely, 100%. Right there you go. Otha, yep, absolutely. So that's why I love this concept because it does all of these things, not just one or the other. Now, as I said, don't need to take out a pen and paper, but just use that chat box, ask questions, use the Q&A things. As I said, I'll be answering these things interactively. This is a live presentation, of course, so make sure to ask those questions. Now, let me ask you another question. Who learns quickly? Okay. Well, kids learn quickly, right? Even if they are stubborn, they still learn pretty quickly. And so, probably just like me, when you were a kid, you learned how to ride a bicycle. And even if you don't ride a bicycle, it's pretty easy to hop on one and pedal, and you can, it comes back to you very quickly, right? But here's the thing. What I want you to think about is, what if the bicycle did not work that way? What if you hopped on the bicycle and you turned the handlebars to the left and the tire went to the right? By the way, it's called the backwards bicycle. You can go and Google it. There's actually a video on this. Do it after the presentation, of course. But it's called the backwards bicycle. And it's a really funny video because the guy gets on it and he tries to ride it and he goes like this and he falls over, right? You can't ride the bicycle because your mind and your body are programmed for a traditional bicycle. So it takes him, I don't know what, I think it's like 6 weeks or something like that, or quite a while to learn how to ride the backwards bicycle. Now, here's the crazy thing though about this. This is pretty funny. So he learns how to ride the backwards bicycle, but when he gets on a regular one, he can't ride a regular bicycle anymore because he's reprogrammed his mind and his body, right? It's the same with money. Okay. The way that we're taught about money as we go through life, it might not be correct. Because guess what? If you're told, hey, go get debt to live your life. Hey, go get a 401k. If we're taught these things that we think is normal, but they're not actually benefiting us, we might not be thinking the right way around money. So as I said, as we go through this presentation, keep an open mind around how this concept works around money, because we're going to be sort of challenging that subconscious programming that we have already around money. Okay. Yeah. So Gary said, he said in the private box, he goes, I did this once at a fair, tried to ride the backwards bicycle. Very difficult. Yeah, it's really hard. But so is sometimes changing the way we think about money, because we're told, go get credit cards, go get debt, go get loans. But in reality, we're making a lot of other people rich, not ourselves. So we're going to switch that with this strategy. Okay. Now let's kind of think about this then. So why aren't more people successful, right? Why? Okay. So one, let's talk about some of the wealth killers that are out there. Okay. Somebody already said this one before, taxes. Okay. I don't mind paying taxes, but I'm a lot happier paying a lot less. So this strategy has a lot of tax benefits. Inflation, that secret wealth killer. Volatility, interest, by the way, man, gosh, it was what, 5 years ago, I was reading this article and it said the average American family pays over $18,000 of interest every year. That's not a small amount of money, by the way. Okay. Additionally, mindset is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to building wealth, right? Following the status quo, fear of losing money. Okay. Life in general creates that mindset that can not allow us to build wealth. What we're taught, by the way, by those around us, by the government, by the educational system, family and friends, right? What we're taught about money might not be right. Okay. So knowing that, what is the definition of money? Okay. Well, it's just a means for exchange. That's all it is. It could be seashells, it could be, rocks, paper money, fiat currency, by the way, is what I'm talking about. It's just a means for exchange. That's all it is. Okay. Now let's also think about this. What company uses compound interest? Do banks use compound interest? No, they don't. They charge you interest, but they don't use it themselves, really. They don't really do that. Because if you give a $20 bill or a $100 bill to a bank teller, they don't write your name on it and toss it in the back in a box with your name on it. No, they put that money into motion to make more money. Okay. Are your dollars worth more today or in the future? Okay, think about that for a second. How much could a dollar bill buy you for, like, let's say candy bars or a candy 20 years ago versus today? Okay, it's worth more today. Okay, it's going to be worth less in the future. So kind of keep that in mind. Okay, now this is kind of a funny one. Will taxes go up or down? Well, I don't really think they're going to go down. I mean, that'd be great, but pretty much they're always going to be going up. Yep. Jeanette said, yep, going up. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Terry said, always today for the money. Correct. Yeah. Now, let me ask you another question. Would you would you wait to eat bread or drink milk? No, of course not. We are going to buy it. We're going to eat it today. But here's the thing. Would you take $50,000, go buy a nice truck, go park it in your garage, and then wait 5 years to drive it? Of course not. Of course not. But here's the thing. We do things with money, right? We put it into a 401k, put it into an IRA, and we wait to use it. So we do things with money that we wouldn't do with things that money buys. So we'll put money away for the future, but we will go buy things and then use them today. So we want to change the way we think about it. We want to be able to use our money today and in the future. Make sense? And in the future. Okay. Now, next thing up, what do you know about your retirement account? So think about an IRA or a 401k. Those are very common things that we think about when it comes to retirement accounts. Now, we're giving up today, strong dollars today, for weaker dollars in the future. Why do I say that? Well, one, compounding the taxes, because taxes are always going to be going up. So you're going to pay more on the dollars down the road. And when you pay those taxes, it's going to be higher, and you don't have the deductions typically that you have while you're working. So we're going to be giving up value today for, so hopefully a perceived value down the road. Okay. All right. Now, what I want to talk about really quickly is how money flows. Now, this is when you start thinking about traditional things like buying a car, this is how a lot of us will do it. Okay. So let's say we're going to go buy a car. Now, this is about how money flows. Okay. So let's say we're going to buy a car for $25,000, right? And let's say we have $25,000 of cash sitting at the local bank or credit union earning 4% right now. And so we say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go buy a car for $25,000. Hey, I've got $25,000 of cash. Let me go get it out of the bank and go buy the car. But when you go to the bank, the banker, call him Mr. Banker, the banker says, well, wait a second. Before you do take the money out, how about this? How about you leave your $25,000 in the bank? I'll give you 4% for it. And I'll give you a loan with your cash as the collateral. I'm going to give you $25,000 and I'm going to charge you 6% on that money. Simple interest. Okay. So let's just say that you have that car now. You've borrowed from the bank. The bank gave you a loan at 6%. Let's say it's going to be 60 months of payments. That's 5 years. And you've got the same amount of money, $25,000, in the bank earning 4% for 6 months. So here's how the math works. Now, this is math, right? So inside your car payment is going to be $483 per month. Okay. So the future value of those payments back to the bank is $28,999. Let's just say $29,000 for simple, easy math. Okay. Now, here's the crazy thing. The money in the bank that's earning 4%, the future value of that money is $30,525. Here's the math. You've made $1,526 earning 4% while paying 6%. Most people are like saying, wait a second, how can I make money when I'm paying more as an interest while earning less? The reason why is because, well, math, but the 4% is compounding positively, whereas the 6%, you're paying 6% on a decreasing balance. So this is math right here. This is how banking works. It's why people lose a lot of money by paying banks a lot of money. This is the math right there. So once again, mindset here. You can make more earning 4% while paying 6%. Just understand that math right there. Okay. All right. So here's the 3 things we're going to be talking about in this presentation. So the first thing is going to be the machine. What is the machine that allows this money sprint? It is a marathon. How's that work? And then the last thing we're going to be talking about is the millionaire. Everybody's favorite topic, right? We want to be a millionaire. So how can you use this concept to create that generational wealth, create that wealth in our lives? Okay. All right. So let's go through the machine really quickly. Okay. So this is nothing more than a specially designed dividend paying permanent whole life insurance policy with a mutual insurance company. Kind of a mouthful, but that's what it is. And so the way I want you to think about this is like this. Think of like infinite banking as a car. Okay, the car's got windshields, tires, brakes, heaters, windshield wipers, mirrors, all that kind of stuff. But for that vehicle to go down the road, it has to have an engine. Okay, that engine is a dividend paying, specially designed whole life insurance policy. Now, why do we say mutual company? Mutual company means that the policyholders, you and me, we are the fractional owners of the company. That's what mutual means. That's why these pay dividends. So that's how you have the compounding. You're earning dividends every single year for your entire life on the money you put inside these policies. So that's why we say dividend paying whole life policy, mutual company. Okay. Now, if you're thinking, well, why insurance? Why? Who else would do this? Well, guess what? Guess who the biggest purchasers of whole life insurance are? It's banks, big banks. It's called Boldy, by the way, bank-owned life insurance. They own policies on their bank managers, bank CEOs, presidents, all those kinds of people. Now, why do they do that? Well, do they know something that we maybe don't? Yeah, probably so. But guess what? They know they can put in $1 and get $5 out guaranteed down the road. So that banks use this. Then guess how they fund these policies? With your money. So essentially what we're going to say is we're going to be bypassing the banks and doing one of the same things that they do with our money in the first place. What's control, right? Control. Okay. Now also, why life insurance? Okay. This concept and whole life has been around for hundreds of years. It's not a new thing. Life insurance, by the way, has been around for thousands of years. This is not a new concept. Okay. In fact, these strategies or this concept has been around longer than the IRS. So the tax code as we know it in the US was started in 1913. Okay. This has been around since like the 1700s. Okay. It's been around a lot longer than even the IRS, than the Treasury, all that kind of stuff. So once again, this is not something brand new. All right. So remember I said, I said you can earn 4% while making 6%. Some people call that a spread. Now I don't because they're two different kinds of interests. But yes, as I said, you can earn money while we're earning 4% and paying 6%. We did the math already right there. Okay. So once again, keep that in mind as we go through this. All right. Now, next thing I want to make sure that we talk about is banks. How do banks work? Now, most people don't know how banks function. They think that banks, are in business to lend money, right? No, that's not why banks exist. Now, is that a function of a bank? Absolutely. But does anybody want to why do banks exist? Use the chat box there. Why do banks exist? I want to see if anybody can, I know someone will get it, but why do they exist? Use that chat box there. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. Anybody want to guess on this one? Why do banks exist? To screw us over. Money movement. Okay. Control money. Yeah. There you go. That's it right there, by the way. Store and protect money. So Gary says to store and protect money. That's a very common answer. That's a banking function, but why they exist is to make money, to make profit. That's really what they do. Now, granted, credit unions owned by they're owned by the policyholders, kind of. To loan money at interest. So yeah, that's how they make money. So banks exist to make money. So how do they make money? Well, here's how they make money. So let's look at this. Let's say that you put $100,000 into a bank, and let's say that bank's going to be very nice, and they're going to pay you 4% on that money. Okay, so that's a liability for the bank, by the way. That money is a liability because they owe it back to you, but they're going to pay you 4% too. But what do? Well, they don't just sit on that money, right? Like a chicken, right? They go lend it back out. Maybe it's on a home loan or a home mortgage. Maybe it's at 7%. Okay. But guess what? What's the seller do with the money? they take the money and put it right back into the bank. Well, the bank's not going to sit on that money either. They're going to do the same exact thing again. They're going to lend it back out, maybe at 4%, maybe at 8% on a car loan. But what does the car dealer do? Same thing. They pay their employees. They put money back into the bank, right? But what's the bank do? They're going to recycle that money once again. They're going to loan it right back out again at maybe 9%. But what's the contractor do? What do his subcontractors do? Well, they pay their people. Where's that money go back? Right back into the bank once again. What's the bank do? Maybe they do a debt consolidation loan, something like that. But what's the credit card company do? Put it right back into a bank. So all a bank is doing is putting money into motion, right? Money in motion makes money. That's one of the things that we got to understand, that a lot of people have money sitting around, lying around. Maybe it's in your checking account. It's not making money. It's actually losing money. A bank, if you park your money in the bank, then your money's just sitting there for you. For you, it's not doing anything. But a bank doesn't let your money sit. They put it into motion to the point where if they're paying you 4%, they're going to make 500% more than they're paying you on your own money. That's how banks make money. They make money off of your money. Okay. Now, what I'm saying here is this is not something we just pulled out of the thin air. This actually comes from BauerFinancial.com. You can go there and look this up, by the way. So they make between 400 and 1300% on the money that you leave there. And you can go look up the history, by the way, of how much banks have made on your money. Now, this is not to say that banks are, a good steward of money. It's not to say that banks are, not doing other things that cause them to go under. We've seen that happen, here recently, where a bank just defaults because they're doing other things they shouldn't be doing. But when it comes to your money, they make a lot of money on it because they put it into motion. So that's what this concept, infinite banking, is also about. It's about putting your money into motion. Okay. Like just leaving that money in a bank is going to lose value. Okay. All right. So now I want to look at really quickly the annual pattern of spending. Now this is all about mindset, by the way. We're talking about mindset stuff here. So this is how most people spend their money. So let's say you have $1 that comes into your hands, right? That can be income, it can be from a business, W-2, a job, whatever. But when you have $1 coming in, 20 cents of every dollar goes right back out to automobiles, okay? Payments, gas, upkeep, all that kind of stuff. 30 cents of every dollar that comes into your hands goes back out on housing, mortgage, rent, things like that. 40 cents of every dollar that comes in goes to everything else. Call it travel, entertainment, food, groceries, things like that. Okay. So the point here is that 90 cents of every dollar that you make goes right back out to somebody else. Okay. Now there's a lot of interest tied to these things, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But unfortunately, only around 10%. And by the way, this has been as low as 5, and a negative number during COVID but 10 cents approximately of every dollar you save. Okay. Prior to the last recession or COVID recession, it was a negative number, by the way, which is kind of crazy. Okay. And by the way, if you go talk to a traditional financial planner, what number do you think they talk about? Automobiles? Nah. Housing? Everything else? Nope. They talk about your savings. That's what they focus on. So I'm not going to talk to you about really what you're saving per se, because that is a very important number, but more about where is the interest hidden inside of all this. How much are you losing to other people? Okay. So let's talk about that. So once again, 10% goes to savings. So how do we increase the savings? By understanding interest. Okay. So I said that on average, 20 cents of every dollar goes to cars or automobiles. Well, 5 cents of that 20 cents is actually interest. Okay. So if you can recapture that interest and put it back into your pocket, your savings is going to go up. So let's go ahead and put that 5 cents back into savings. Okay. Now, I said that 30 cents of every dollar goes to, right, housing. Okay. Now, here's the crazy thing. When you think of a mortgage, right, amortized mortgage, 25 cents of the 30 cents is interest. That's a huge amount, by the way. It's a very large amount. So what if we can recapture some of that money, put it back into our savings? It's going to bump it up. Okay. Now, when it comes to everything else, 40 cents, roughly maybe 5% of that is interest. That's credit card, interest, things like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and put that back into savings. Now, someone said here in the private thing about, oh, why so much on the housing? Well, if you look at a mortgage or an amortized mortgage, which by the way is my opinion, one of the biggest scams ever sold to the American people. When you look at it, in the first 7 years of that mortgage, around 80, I think it's 78 to 83% is going to interest. If you have a 3.5% mortgage, yet you're paying almost 80 some percent of every payment in the first 7 years to interest, does the interest rate really matter? I mean, it's crazy. And why is it 7 years, by the way? I know if you guys know this, they made it 7 years. Why they front load the interest? Because the average family moves every 7 years. So every time you move and get a new mortgage, you reset that interest clock. Mortgages are very dangerous in that regard because they steal a lot of wealth and a lot of money from people. Okay. So now what you've seen, if you can change the annual pattern of spending, and you change one thing, by the way, it's where your money goes first. Okay. For most of us, what happens is the money comes into our hands, we spend it on expenses, and then whatever's left over is ours. We save that. Okay. I want to switch that around. Okay. Before you go and pay for all the other things and pay out interest, capture that money, control that money first. Remember control of money? So that's what this concept is going to be about. So let's look at an example of what I'm talking about. So let's look at an example of how to get all the money back for every car that you ever buy, drive, and own. Now, I'm a classic car guy, so of course that's a cool car right there. That's a Mustang Eleanor, yeah, GT500, yeah. So I have a Mercury Cougar right now. I don't have my Mustang anymore. I sold that, which I don't ever do that. All right, so let's look at how you can get all that money back, okay? So now we're going to start looking at the policy, the infinite banking concept. So once again, this is a policy. So this is what's called an illustration on the right-hand side. Now we're going to change some terms here. Now, when we put a premium into this policy, we're going to call that a premium deposit because we're depositing this because we can borrow it back out, okay? Now, the way infinite banking works is that when you put money into the policy, a certain amount of it, the majority of it, goes to what is called cash value, and that's going to grow. As the dividends grow, your cash value will always be going up, and you can borrow against that cash value, okay? So that's called a policy loan, okay? Now, age. Now we're thinking about life insurance. Oh my gosh, I can't do this because I'm too old. Well, keep in mind, age doesn't really matter because you can get policies on other people as well. So you can open up multiple branches of your bank, okay? It can be on you, spouse, kids, adult kids, grandkids, all that kind of stuff. So think of it as multiple branches of your bank, okay? Death benefit. Now, we really don't talk about the death benefit a lot because it's not the focus. Because when people think of life insurance, they think death benefit. Well, that's a benefit at death. No, I don't like that. I want living benefits. So we're going to be talking about the living benefits of infinite banking, of these kinds of policies. Yeah, yes, the death benefit does matter, but it's not the focus, if that makes sense. Oscar had a question. What benefit of whole life versus term insurance? Well, that's a great question right there, by the way. So term insurance and life insurance or whole life are apples and rocks. They're not even comparable. Term insurance only has a death benefit. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. And the only way that you win with term insurance is if you die. That sucks, by the way. There is no living benefit to term insurance. With whole life, you have a guaranteed death benefit, but you have a lot of living benefits. It's very different. It's also permanent insurance, meaning it's guaranteed to pay out at some point down the road. It's there for your entire life. So they're very different types of things. Yeah, term insurance doesn't really play into infinite banking as far as the benefits go. But that being said, let's kind of go through how this machine will work for that car. Okay, so let's say we're gonna fund a policy. Okay, and we're gonna fund this policy for $10,000 deposits for the first 7 years. Okay. Yeah, Yvonne's had a great question or a great response here. She said, plus the money you pay in premiums is gone too. Correct. Yeah. So what she's saying is that in term insurance, when you pay into it, if when the term expires, your money's gone and you have no benefit from that. I mean, yes, you had the benefit of having that in place during that time frame. Term insurance, by the way, has a purpose. So let's say if you have a business with a lot of debt and that debt's going to be paid off in 5 years, get a 5-year term so that if something does happen, unfortunately, the debt would be paid off. But after 5 years, you don't need it anymore. It goes away. So it does have a place, by the way. Yeah. All right. So, all right, we're going to fund this policy for $10,000 deposits for the first 7 years. Okay. Now, as we fund the policy, it's going to start accumulating and compounding. Okay. We're going to get cash value out of this policy. Okay. So let's just say that in year 3, now, by the way, I'm being very conservative with these numbers, by the way, very conservative. Now, let's say in year 3, you're going to go to your bank and you're going to borrow out $25,000 from your bank. But here's the thing. When you take that $25,000 out and you borrow it, okay, nothing changes. The policy still continues to grow, still compounds. Okay, that's very powerful right there. Now, because this is your bank, you're going to treat your bank like any other bank. You're going to pay yourself back with interest. So let's say you're going to pay yourself back at, let's use $500 per month, $6,000 per year for 5 years and pay off that car. Okay. So what does the math tell us? At the end of those 7 years, you've put in $70,000 of deposits. You've paid yourself back $30,000. That's the $6,000 per year for 5 years. So you've put in, call it $100,000 into your infinite banking strategy. But at the same time, you took out $25,000. You had cash coming back into your pocket. Doesn't matter if you paid for a car, college, investments, went on vacation, real estate, doesn't matter, but let's just say for a car, okay? So in reality, how much did you put in? Well, you put in $25,000 into this policy because you put in 100 and you took 25 out. Okay. Now, how's the math work? That means that you've captured or recaptured 91 cents of every dollar you put into the policy. Now, once again, that is being very conservative. Normally, it's going to be above that, but once again, conservative. All right. Now, let's say for the next 7 years, or sorry, 5 years, we put no more deposits into the policy. So keep this in mind. You can do this. You don't have to keep funding this policy for it to continue to grow. It'll grow for the rest of your life, as I said, with guarantees, even if you stop funding the bank, funding your policy. Okay. So now let's say in year 8, we do the same thing. We're going to go and borrow $25,000 from our policy to buy another car. Same thing. We're going to pay ourselves back with interest. So now how's the math work? Okay. You put another $30,000 in, but you took $25,000 out. So you put in $5,000 in that year. But here's the crazy thing. Your policy from year 7 to year 12, it grew by $23,592 and you only put in $5,000. Now, here's how the math additionally works. So at year 12, you have $91,473 of cash value in your policy that you can use for whatever you want. Buying a car, college, down payment on a house, real estate, whatever you want. But how much have you put in? Into this policy, in the first 7 years, you put in $75,000. In years 8 through 12, you put in 5. That's $80,000. 75 plus 5. You put in $80,000, but it's worth $91,000. It's worth more than you put into it. And you've also have 2 cars that you own outright that you paid off. Maybe do that math for you one more time. You put in $80,000, it's worth $91,000, and you own 2 cars outright. Now, once again, as I said, this is an ultra conservative number. Infinite banking is usually, the numbers are a lot better than that, but I want to be very conservative when you do this. But that's how this can work. So when you are the bank, you also control both sides of this. Okay. All right. So there's 3 rules when it comes to infinite banking that we want to talk about. So the one is pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. Okay. We've always been trained to pay bills first, pay expenses first, pay everybody else first. But with this one, we want to pay ourselves first. That's called the recapture and recycling of your money. Okay. Pay yourself with interest. So if you've ever read the infinite banking book, it's called, Don't Steal the Peas. What that means is that if you're going to go to a bank and get a car loan and pay it back at 8%, if you're going to go to your own bank and get a car loan, pay yourself back the same, okay, with 8%. Don't treat your bank differently than you would treat any other bank, because if you are the bank, you want to benefit the same way as a bank does. And the last is called recycle and recapture your money. Okay, what that means is, is it better to be the bank? Of course. If you're going to pay interest to a bank, pay yourself interest as well. Okay. All right. So if this works for a car, I've already said it works for real estate, for investing, for all those kind of things. What else can it do? So one of the other big things that a lot of people use infinite banking for is debts. Why debts? Debts can steal wealth. It's ridiculous how much we spend on debt. And so paying off debts is one of the big things, because if you want to build wealth, well, first off, stop letting that money go out to other people, recapture it coming back in, and then invest that money, make it work for you. Okay. Mark says, what if you hit the lottery, placing in 1 million in day one? Mark, yes and no. I mean, you can get a lot of money into one of these things. Yes. It just depends on you, because the insurance companies will look at you and say, okay, what's the maximum you can put in, all that kind of stuff. So it's just math. But yeah, I mean, I've had hundreds of clients that have had come into like a money. Maybe it's inheritance, settlement, something like that, and they get a lot of that through a policy. Yes. MEC rules. Yeah, Gary just said MEC rules. Yeah, so the challenge with putting a bunch of money in up front is the modified endowment contract, which is a limitation on how much you can dump in without creating a taxable event. But I'll talk about a little bit more about that down the road. But yeah, there are some limitations on what you can do. Okay. But oftentimes when someone does come into a bunch of money like that, what you're doing is multiple things. Yeah, you're doing a few things. You'll do maybe this, you'll do something else. Maybe you'll put some money into real estate. You might split it up a bit too. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at an example of debt. So on this example, we're going to use now once again, you hear me say this quite a bit. This is a very conservative scenario. But let's say we have a doctor. Let's say he's 45 years old. He has 9 third-party debts. That's, by the way, a total of $478,000 of debt. Okay. And his total payments are $5,777 per month, or 69 grand per year. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of money going out to debts. Linda just said it real quick. Does it work for one-time lump sum premiums? No. You can do those, and it does function like this, but there's taxable issues with one-time premium policies. Yeah. So we don't do those because I don't want to pay taxes. All right. So yeah, so this person, this doctor is paying a lot of money going out every year towards interest. Okay. So we are going to do a policy here. And on this policy, we're going to do, by the way, it's 19 years for him to pay all those back. If he pays them back traditionally, it's 19 years and a lot of money. Okay. So we're going to look at an example of a policy here. Now, in this policy, so here's the math right here. So a lot of money going out. Okay. So we're going to start up an infinite banking structured policy. He's going to put in $25,000 as a premium year one. Now, keep in mind, this is just an example. You don't have to put in that much. It's very on the individual. Now, right off the bat, being conservative, he's going to have around $14,863 of cash value in the policy day one. Okay. Now he's earning dividends on the entire deposit, but he can borrow out within 30 days, by the way, right off the bat, 14 grand. So he does that. So we do that. So we take out 14,000, we pay off the Discover, Lowe's, and part of Nordstrom credit cards. Okay. Now what happens is the debt goes down, but his monthly payment also drops by $448. Okay. So the payment goes down. So what do we do? Okay. So we take that 448 per month that we're now not paying to the creditors, and we put it back into our policy. So we pay ourselves back as an example. Okay. Okay. So now what happens in year two? Okay. In year two, another $25,000 deposit goes in. The cash value available off that deposit is $16,571. And the payments that we made back into our policy have also added the cash value, or added to the cash value, $5,374. So the total cash value that he has inside this policy to borrow against is now $21,945. Okay. So we do the same thing. Okay. Now we borrow that money out, pay off Nordstrom's, Wells Fargo, the private loan, and part of the BMW car loan. And so the payments have now dropped by $1,917 per month. Okay. So all we're doing is now recapturing the debts back into the policy and freeing up the cash flow and put that back into our policy. Okay. Month three, same thing. 25 goes in, cash value jumps up by 25,000, payments back to ourselves of $1,900 equals 23,000 and change. Now the total cash that we have is $48,545. Okay. So same thing once again, borrow that back out, pay off the BMW, West Marine, and part of the condo. Okay. So kind of making sense. This is what we're doing. Right now, the payments have dropped by $3,677 per month. So we're recapturing that cash flow is what we're doing. Now, before I get into the year four, I want you to understand the marathon of what we're doing here. So how much have we put into this policy? Well, 3 years, $25,000, $75,000. Okay. The loans, we've borrowed from the policy $55,000. Now, as I said before, these are dividend paying policies, meaning that you're earning dividends every single year on these things. Now, the question though is, if we've taken $55,000 out, how much is left in the policy? How much is inside there earning those dividends? Is it 55,000? Is it 75? A lot of people will say, they'll say $20,000. Now, I know a lot of you know the answer to this. It's $75,000. So even though we borrowed from the policy, we're still earning dividends on the $75,000 we put in. That's crazy. So think about that for a second. You're going to earn dividends compounded for the rest of your life. And even if you borrow from it, you're still going to earn the same amount. That's very powerful when you understand compounding and interest. Man, it's pretty cool. Okay, let's go to year four. All right, year four, once again, 25 goes in, payments back to ourselves equals 44,000. The payments back to ourselves is the $3,677 per month that was going to the debts. Now is going back into our hands. So we put that back into the policy. Total cash is $70,000 available. Same thing. We borrow it right back out again. Okay. Now we pay off the condo. Now we only paid off a part of it. So what happens is the monthly payments don't change because that's an amortized loan. If you pay off the principal on that, It doesn't change the monthly payments. So in year 4, the monthly payments back to ourselves doesn't change. Okay. So year 5, once again, same thing. Another 25 goes in, cash value goes up by $27,090 based upon that deposit. So what I want you to note here, this is year 5. This person put in $25,000 deposit into the policy, yet the cash value went up by $27,000. So that's more than they put in. Okay. And that's never going to change for the rest of the policy life. It's going to keep going up. Okay. The payments back to ourselves is $44,000 and change. So the total cash is $71,225. Now we take that out. We wipe out the condo. We wipe out a portion of the house. Okay. Now the monthly payments dropped down by $4,556. So year 6 is a bit different. So now what we're going to say is, hey, our policy has become very efficient. It's earning more than we're putting in. So we're going to drop the premium from 25 down to 10,000 per year. Now, even though we do that, if you do see the math up here on the upper right-hand corner, we put in $20,000, but the cash value went up by $13,000 more than we put in. Okay. Now we're going to start a second policy because, hey, you know what? I like this concept. It's doing very well for me. I want to do more of these banks. I want to open up another bank. Okay. So we do a second one. Once again, 25,000 goes into this. Immediately, cash value on that second policy is now 14,000, and the payments back to ourselves equals 54,000 and change. So the total cash is 82,000. So we borrow a portion of that, $76,000, and we pay off the house. And now our debt is all paid off. The cash flow is 100% freed up. Now, what do we do in year 7? In year 7, we take that monthly payments back to ourselves. We pay back the remaining balance on our policy loans, and then we have no more policy loans. And yet we have 6 figures of cash value, no debts. We have freed up cash flow. Now we start building wealth. So this is why paying off debt is so powerful, because this person right here was going to pay it off in 19 years. They did it in 7 years. Now they have a bunch of cash flow and they have a policy with a bunch of cash value. Now they can put that money to work in multiple other vehicles and start building wealth. So once again, paying off debt is an incredible thing when it comes to infinite banking. Now, if you're like me and you see this, you're like saying, well, okay, that makes sense, but that's a lot of math right there. Don't worry about it. We do the math for you. So we have software. There's no cost, no fee to be ever charged, by the way. But we actually built a debt blaster tool because this was coming up so often with our clients. So Craig and our team put together what's called a debt blaster, and it maps out how to do exactly what I just showed you at a high level. So this does it at the detailed level. So you just follow the plan, follow the math, and it will work for you. And so that's one of the things that we do for people is we have what's called an implementation team. Think of it like your own personal financial blueprint, or BYOB, be your own bank blueprint. We'll map this out for you. All right. Okay. So someone here said, does the 10,000 include the premium or like age 65 extra? So it includes it. Yeah. So the 10K is the premium deposit. I think you're talking about the car example. Yeah, the 10,000 is the premium deposit. Yeah. So there's nothing extra on top of that. So it's just that amount. All right. Now let's kind of talk about the Millionaire method, okay? Let's see here. Yeah, Leroy said that's cool. Yeah, and it gets even better. That's just very simple. It's even more ridiculous than that when you start to really get into the math on it. So the next thing that comes up is, hey, now how do we start building wealth? Yeah. What if I have no bad debt? What if I don't need a new car? Can I still benefit from privatized banking? Should I be my own banker? Well, yes, absolutely, right? Because as I said, once you pay off the debts or you don't need a new car, when you start to put your money to work for you, that's when it becomes incredible. That's where you start building wealth, building that legacy, and start doing other things. So how can you create wealth, generational wealth, or wealth today with infinite banking? So one, active real estate investors. So think of like wholesalers, flippers, buy and hold. When I did real estate, I did subject to investing. That's how I got my start in real estate. Commercial property. So think of like apartments, mobile homes, private funds. So think of like lending. So that the private money club, one of our groups. So that's one of the ways that a lot of people make money or return on infinite banking is lending the money out. Business owners, a lot of business owners will take their business revenue and flow it through a policy to capture it, create that retirement fund, but also to help fund the business. Think of like a line of credit for the business. Stocks and option traders. I used to do a lot of day trading, so you can use it for that. Startups, we have a lot of people that are doing startups, and they have some startup capital, but they don't want to just blow it on on the business and not have it left. So they'll put it through a policy first to capture it so that it's there for the rest of their life. And then equipment flipping. So this is kind of a funny one, but yeah, we have another group. One of our my colleagues has a whole business where you can flip equipment. You buy it, renovate it, and then lease it back out. So there's lots of different ways to do that. But now what I want to show you, I want to show you an example of how this can work for private lending. So how can you use infinite banking as your own bank, but to private lend? So think about what a bank does. A bank lends money, okay? So this is what's called a policy illustration or tabular detail, I guess is what you would call it. Yeah, buy hot rods, Frank. My next car, by the way, that I want to build is a Shelby Coupe. So it's a replica, but yeah, I want to build a Shelby Coupe. That's my next one. But yeah, so this is what's called a tabular detail inside of an illustration. And this shows you the end of your numbers. Now, what you're going to see on this one, the very first year, this person put in $150,000. That's a $50,000 premium deposit and a $100,000 dump in or lump sum, as we call it. So by the way, you can do this. You can put in a monthly premium and you can put in a larger amount, just one-time injection, or multiple times per year, or for the first 7, 10, 20 years. You can fund these things many different ways, but let's keep it simple. So $50,000 deposit and a $100,000 lump sum or dump in. So I'm going to fast forward now down the road, because remember we said marathon, not a sprint. But let's look at year 8. In year 8, the increase of cash value, so the cash value in the policy increased by $66,722. Okay. So the bank, your bank, Bank of You, grew by $66,000. But how much did you put in? Well, you only put in $48,593, yet it grew by $66,000. So it grew by more than you put in, which means you had $18,129 of growth, which is a 37% cash on cash return. So give me a 1, give me a yes, give me a Y in that chat box if you'd like to have a 37% cash on cash return on your money. Would that be a good amount of return to have on your money? Anybody want to answer that one? Yeah. Patrick said, yeah, a 1. Yep, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Frank said, yep. Yep. Leroy said, yep, absolutely. That's a pretty good one, right? And Mark said, this is where I get lost. Okay. So the reason why it went up by that amount, Mark, yeah, Patrick said, I want to say duh. Yes, absolutely. So why it went up? So you put in $48,000. Okay. Now of the 48,000, the majority of that goes to cash value, but you're also getting dividends. So the dividends you're earning are based upon the total amount you put into the policy over years. Okay. So it's going up by the amount you put in and also by dividends. Those dividends are always increasing, always growing, which means that your cash value, your cash on cash return is just going to get better and better and better every single year. So that's the math right there. Okay. Yeah. And Frank, exactly. You're not taxed on that growth either. You're not taxed on it. Okay. Now, let's look at what this can do when you private lend it. Okay. So let's say you borrow from this policy and you lend it out at 12% private money loan. Okay. That's a private bank. Okay. Now you also earned 37%. Now let's say the interest rate on the policy loan from the insurance company is 5%. Okay. Now by doing private lending with that money, your cash on cash return is 44%. Like that's ridiculous. That's crazy. 44%. And all we did was change one thing, where our money went first. Because if you didn't put the money into the policy and you just private lent it out, you'd only make 12%. Okay. But by doing infinite banking, you're making 44%. So question is, would you rather make 12% or 44%? Okay. Be your own banker, BYOB right there. So that is how this can work. Okay. Now, I think Mark said something, hey, this is where I get lost. So this is where compound interest comes into play. Now, it's uninterrupted compounding. If you borrow or not from the policy, you still earn that return. So this is an example right here, really quickly. Someone, this person is putting in around $6,000 per year premium deposit. They put in a $50,000 dump in lump sum year 1 as well, which grows the cash value. So if you do the math here, in year 2, cash on cash return is 21% and access to capital is 121%. Year 10, cash on cash is 54%. Access to capital is 154%. Excuse me. In year 25, it's 281% 8% cash on cash return, and a access to capital is 381%. Okay. Now, this is not even including if they lent the money out or created more assets like cash flow. This is just the policy by itself. Okay. Pretty good returns right there. So this is why a lot of people, when they look at this, are saying, oh my gosh, why don't I know about this? Well, now you do. Okay. Now you do. So very, very cool how that looks. Now, and by the way, I'm going to go through some more examples and some more numbers to kind of break it out. And there's some more information I'm going to give you guys. But, one of the questions I always ask people is, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time, right? You got to start the ball rolling. So keep that in mind with infinite banking. It's not like yes, there's very short-term benefits, but it's a long-term concept as well. And then, yeah, the man at the top of the mountain didn't fall there. And what do I mean by that? So a lot of us look at someone and say, hey, that person's successful, they're wealthy, they're on the top of the mountain. I wish I could get up there. Well, how did they get there? Well, unless they were born with, $1 billion in the bank and a helicopter to get them up there, they started taking that first step. That's how you get to the top of the mountain. And infinite banking is the same way. You can get there. You just got to take that first step, if that makes sense. So this machine, it works for debt and expenses. So vacations, homes, taxes, everything else. Okay. It works for a lot of other things. Now, I want to kind of circle back really quickly to that first example of paying off the houses, the condo and the house for that doctor. And I'm going to show you something here that is pretty powerful. Oscar said, this system seems to require 7 years to work. So what's the upper age limit to get started? It's not 7 years. I mean, it's day one, by the way. Day one, it can work. So you can borrow right off the bat. So if you're looking at 7 years, what you're looking at is like to get very efficient. But if you're taking the cash value and loaning it back to yourself and doing other things, paying off debts, other things like that, it's very powerful right off the bat. So if you're just letting it sit there, yeah, it's going to take a while. But if you're using it, all bets are off right there. If that makes sense. Okay, so here's the thing. So remember the doctor, the house, and the condo. So let's just say that we paid those things back as promised to the banks. So what would that look like? Well, the condo payments would be $220,000. That's $879 for 251 months. Okay. The house, $1,221 for 224 months. That's $273,000, which means you would have paid $493,000 and you'd own the house and the condo, but you would not have the $493,000 though either. Now, let's just say that you replaced yourself as the bank, or you replaced the bank with yourself. Yeah, better way to say it right there. And you paid yourself this money instead of back to that bank. So let's say that you were doing it at 4% interest. Let's say you're earning 4% interest inside the policy as well, and you're paying yourself back. Okay. Here's the math on that. Okay. So if you paid yourself back that money and earned that same amount of money, you would have $749,000 in your infinite banking policy, and you would own the house and the condo. Now that's a drastic example, but I'm doing it on purpose. It's very drastic, but that's a swing of over $1 million. So by being the bank, right, now keep in mind, you'd have to fund it first, all that kind of stuff, yes. But if you understand the math right there, you would paid $493, or you'd have $749,000. So it's a big swing. And if you're thinking, well, Brian, okay, how's that look with real estate? So we actually have something called the gain projector. It's a software that Craig built that will map out like an investment property. If you want to buy like equipment for your business, we have softwares that will map all this kind of stuff out for you. So you don't have to guess on it. But man, when you start to see the math on these things, every year it just gets more and more ridiculous. It makes you, it's the most common comment I get is, I wish I had done this 20 years ago, right? Well, the second best time is today. So there you go. So now that you know this, I feel like everybody should understand how to do this, okay? Because you can create incredible generational wealth, but also have those living benefits. So, and I have a lot more slides and things we're going to go through. It's not going to take very long, but just a few more things I'll show you. But if you guys are looking to, understand how this can work for you, all you got to do is go to brian.beyourownbanker.com. That's my personal call link. And we'll walk through how this can look for you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put it into the chat box here in a second. Just give me 1 minute. And I'm going to put in my email address as well. So there is my personal call link. So just grab that link, just click it right there. And then you can schedule a call directly with me. If you want to, have any questions or you want to go through this with your stuff. And then there's my email address as well. And so for those PDF books as well, either email me at brian@chrisnaugle.com or click that link and you can get them both there. Okay. Now, I just like to share this slide right here because I think it's kind of funny looking. But the one thing that infinite banking does, and I've said this before, is it gets your money working for you, because we are all taught, programmed, whatever you want to say, to trade time for money, right? Once again, control. Well, if you're trading time for money, you're not controlling time or money, by the way, right? Now, we all trade time for money, but the difference is, do you control it and how you do it? So for me, I'm trading time for money. I do it all the time, but I control how I do it. Okay. Now, by the way, it doesn't matter if you're making $10 per hour or 10,000 per hour. Infinite banking can work for you. Yes, there are some limitations on some of the things. You got to qualify from a health perspective and finance perspective, but you can also always do it on other people. We'll get into a bit more of that in a little bit. Yeah, Frank said, I wish I'd had the system 50 years ago. Exactly. 100%. Yeah. No, for me, I wasn't born then, but yeah. All right. So here's some other things I want to make sure that you are, especially if you're new to this, I wanted you to be aware of a few other things about how this can work. So the death benefit, we'll talk about that here in just a moment. The loan. So when you're loaning yourself the money, those loans do not have to be repaid. Now, we're going to talk about that in a moment. You should pay them back, but they don't have to be. The internal values grow tax free. So think of all the other strategies out there, a Roth IRA being one of the few that does grow tax-free. This one does grow tax-free. As I said, policies are exempt from judgments and liens in most states. The tax-free income in retirement is a great concept. You can do that with this concept as well. Okay. All right, Gary had a question here. Do MEC rules apply to interest earned on loans? No, no. Meaning, could I pay myself a large interest rate in order to super fund my policy and keep my premiums in line with the MEC rules? Okay, good question. So, Gary, yeah, if you tried to put more back into the loan than is built to accept, yes, it would MEC the policy. They don't let you do that, by the way. And so what you do is, if let's say the loan rate on the policy is 5% and you want to pay yourself back at 12%, hard money rates, right? That's called the spread. That 7%, you're going to want to capture that somewhere. You can capture it maybe in the policy if it has room. So we can build them to have that kind of room. You can capture it in an LLC. You can capture it, in another policy, by the way. But yeah, you even though you're paying yourself back with more interest, it's just a matter of where do you capture those funds. There's multiple spots, by the way. So yeah. All right. So let's talk about the generational wealth. Now, I did the presentation here, I think it was last week on this, but yeah, so the death benefit on these is always increasing. Like, that is one of the coolest things. So this is a policy that I built for somebody. This person is putting in 20,000 per year for the first 5 years, and then they drop it down. So keep in mind, the policy premium deposits don't go up over time. They don't go up. They can go down, they can be even, etc. But look at the death benefit over here. It starts out at $325,000 right off the bat. Okay, right off the bat. And then in year 7, it is $499,000. It's always going up, excuse me. It's always going up. So it's an always increasing death benefit. Okay. Now, it does drop down sometimes if we're using a term writer, but that's a guaranteed thing right there. If something happens to this person in their early years, that's going to pay out guaranteed. Okay. In year 5, this person has put in $100,000 in premium deposits into this policy, and yet the death benefit is $483,000. Meaning, if something happened, unfortunately, it would be more than 4 times what they put into this that would come back out of it. So that's why wealthy families understand how powerful this is. They know that if they can put in, over the course of someone's lifetime, $1 million and have the death benefit be 10 million, meaning they're going to guarantee 10x that money for the next generation, and every generation is going to benefit. That's ridiculous generational wealth. So that's the reason why a lot of wealthy families do this, and why some people say, well, why do these families keep getting wealthier and wealthier? What are they doing? This is one of the things they do, by the way. There's books that even talk about how they do it. So pretty cool. Now let's talk really quickly on the policy loans. Okay, though the policy loans are guaranteed. They're a guaranteed loan. Okay, there's no credit check, there's no approval. Just ask and you shall receive. Typically within about 1 to 2 business days, the funds will be in your account. Okay, the loans, they're private. This is kind of cool. So they're private loans because this is a mutual company, meaning it's a private company. They do not go on your credit report. So when you're borrowing and lending money, it does not affect your credit. In fact, when you pay off debt with infinite banking, your credit score goes up because the debts come off your credit report. Okay. And then as far as the loans go, there's no minimum or maximum payments. You are the one in control. So there's no monthly required payments. So there's no statement you get. There's nothing like that. You can choose how to pay it back. And we actually help you with that. If you want to know like how we structure our own payments back, we show you that. Now, the cool thing is if you miss a payment on these things, nothing happens. No one's calling you up and saying, hey, where's my money? No one's calling you up. If you want to know who to call, if you miss a payment, go look in a mirror. That's pretty much how it works, right? Just go look in a mirror because that's who you've got to respond back to. Okay. All right. Next up, let's kind of talk really quickly about how you can fund your infinite banking policy. How do you fund it? All right. So you can do it monthly, you can do it quarterly, you can do it annually. Okay. It's up to you. And you can change that, by the way, during the course of the policy life. The minimum. So minimum recommended for a policy premium is 10 times your age per month. If you're 50 years old, 500. 60 years old, 600. Do the math right there. It's 10 times your age minimum. Now, as far as the maximum premium deposit, it depends on the individual. Roughly speaking, it's anywhere from 15 to 25% of your gross revenue. Now, gross revenue means W-2 income, business income, real estate income, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of the rough numbers right there, but it's once again based upon the individual. On top of those premium deposits, you can fund your policy with a large upfront dump in. So think of it like hey, I want to put in $100,000, something like that. Well, you can do that, and if you do, you're going to be able to borrow 90% of that within the first, I think it's 3 weeks usually. You can borrow right back out. Okay. And by the way, and we can build those so that dumping can occur not just year 1, but year 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And it's not required. It's just an optional thing. If you want to overfund your policy, we can build them to do that. And Gary was asking about the MEC, or someone else asked about the MEC. Yeah, we build it so that it does not impact the MEC, which you don't ever want to do. So Frenchie said, please explain the maximum. All right, so let's just say you make $100,000 per year. That can be real estate. It can be W-2 income, your job. The insurance company is going to say, okay, and I'll just use some round math. They're going to say, based upon that income, we will underwrite you or qualify you to put in 25% of that per year, or $25,000 per year into your policy. That's the maximum you can put in based upon that revenue or that income before taxes, by the way. Or that's what, $2,088 per month. Same thing. So that's how they calculate it. And it's different between companies and things like that. So I just kind of gave a rough range, but I go through that with everybody when we talk. Now, the cool thing about when you're funding these policies, 50 to 90% of it immediately, and I'm talking at the very beginning of the policy, goes to the cash value right off the bat. Now, as the policy grows, you're going to have 100%, 110%, 150%, 200% of that money that you put in available as cash value right off the bat. So it's going to keep growing and growing and growing. And then the last thing I kind of mentioned is this. And would you put in $1 in order to get $3 out of any ATM machine? Of course we would. So what do I mean when I say that? So let's look at a policy example. So this is an example that shows what I just said, but in the tabular details section of the policy. So in this one, annual premium of $10,000 per year. Okay, so this person is depositing $10,000, and they're going to do a lump sum of $50,000 day 1. Okay, so now if you see down there, see those green circles, this is end of year number, so it includes the dividends. But in this case, the person put in $60,000, and at the end of that first year, they have $55,000 of cash value inside the policy. If you do the math on this, this is called a HEC-V. High early cash value. This is what we build. Okay. Now, some people will say, well, Brian, I see a guaranteed section and a non-guaranteed section. Which one do we look at? We look at the non-guaranteed side of these things. Why do I say that? These companies, these mutual insurance companies, have been profitable every single year for over 100, for this company right here, 147 years. They've never not been profitable, which means they have paid dividends to their policyholders every single year. Great Depression, World War I, World War II, COVID. These companies, they are very, very good at what they do. So, and all the mutual companies are the same. They've never gone under, never defaulted, nothing like that. So non-guaranteed is what we look at on that side. Okay. Now, in year 2 on this policy, this person put in $10,000 in year 2, and yet at the end of that second year, the cash value went up by $10,607, more than they put into it. So that is pretty cool. But let's look down the road. So now in year 11, we've reduced the premiums because we can if we want to. You don't have to, but we do. I show it that way sometimes. In year 11, this person put in $3,120 and the cash value went up by $10,590, more than 3 times what they put in. So if you understand how math works, that's pretty good return right there. But if you understand building wealth, that's extremely powerful right there. Okay. All right. Now, this is a quote by Warren Buffett. I'm not quite sure I like this one, but it's kind of funny. But if poor people would just do what rich people do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. I like this one. If poor people knew what the rich people knew and had the same access that they do, they could change their life. That's really what I like to look at. So Frenchie, great question here. What funds am I allowed to put in before tax or after tax funds? So it's they don't look at taxes. So it's like if you make $100,000, that's your salary. That's the number they look at. Okay. If it's business revenue, let's say your business does $1 million of revenue, they're looking at $1 million. They're not looking at after taxes, it's before taxes. So, and it's all income, by the way. It can be cash tips, it can be real estate, it can be W-2. It's all that combined, by the way. Yeah, good question though. All right. So some people will ask me, well, Brian, why would I want to work with you versus somebody else that maybe does infinite banking? Well, one, I've been teaching this for actually almost 9 years now, I believe, almost 9 years now. We have an entire team. So it's not just the Brian show. If you guys have been around our campfire for a little bit, you know that. We have over 30 people that work with for our clients. So that's what we do. We are the largest IABC producer for most of the insurance companies. So with like One America as an example, one of the companies, we are the largest independent broker for that company. So, and because of that, we have a lot of resources that they give us. So these companies like us, so they give us a lot of resources, and we have a lot more leeway when it comes to the policies, the clients, the things that we can do. So I have personally over 100 clients right now in underwriting. I believe it's about that, something like that, 100 clients. I think I've done probably 500, 600 policies this year alone. So we do quite a bit of this. And we only do infinite banking, by the way. We only do infinite banking. That's what we focus on. And we also provide our clients like you ongoing support and services and other resources. This presentation being one of those things, by the way. But we don't charge for any of that kind of stuff. There's no fees, no cost to anything. Yeah, so we don't charge you anything. So keep that in mind. Yeah, Frank. Yeah, and obviously, Frank, you've been around here for quite a while too. So, all right. The next question I get quite a bit is indexed universal life or the variable universal life infinite banking? No, it's not. IULs and term insurance, by the way, pay some of the highest commissions out there. We actually take a pretty big cut in commissions to do infinite banking, about 70% cut in commissions. And we only do infinite banking. And why we don't use IULs or VULs? Well, one, whole life has been around for a lot longer than an indexed universal life. Two, at one of the core beliefs that we have and Nelson Nash had is that we want to remove our money from the system. We want to get that control back into our hands. We don't want to be part of this broken system of fiat currency. Well, not it's always fiat, but part of the Wall Street, part of the corporate machine. And an IUL and VULs, by their nature, oftentimes are tied to the markets, which is what we don't want to be tied to. We want to be in control. We don't want that volatility. So yeah, so we don't touch IULs. And if you're a part of the Nelson Nash Institute, which certifies infinite banking practitioners like myself, they won't even talk to you if you do IULs or VULs. So keep that in mind. So one of the two things will happen to us. Okay. We're going to live and we're going to die. We know that, right? And so the question is, are we better off with or without infinite banking in our lives? I believe that we're better off with it. So that's why I do what I do. That's why we do what we do. It's why we talk about this, because we believe that we're better off with this in our lives, period. Okay? Now, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. So this is kind of the story of two people. And this used to be me, by the way. I used to be the guy on the left. When I learned about something new, I would just bury my head in the sand and I would ignore it. And that ended up costing me big time. I am talking, over $500,000 I lost one time because I just buried my head in the sand and I wouldn't listen to reason. And so I want to be the guy on the right-hand side. And so once again, when wealth is being transferred, group one is obviously the one that is being transferred away from. And I want to be the one receiving that. Okay. So I want to be in group two. And so infinite banking is one of the ways that I have seen where I can get back control of my money and my wealth. And so I want to be in group two. And I'm assuming most people, if you're still here on this call, want to be in group two as well. Okay. So, and I did, by the way, go it alone. So I was in group one. I went, did this by myself, did some other strategies by myself, didn't listen to other people, and ended up costing me big time. So I definitely want to be part of group two. And so here's the next steps. I already put my call link in there. It's right up there. All you got to do is grab that link, schedule a call with me, and let's just hop on a call and go through your situation, go through what we're trying to solve, answer your questions, and just see if infinite banking is a fit for you. I am not going to tell you that it is a fit for everybody. It is not, by the way. It is not. And, and that's why not everybody can do it. That's why everybody does not do it. Basically, there's a certain percentage of the population that can do infinite banking. Okay. So once again, and I like to end on this quote, the one we talked about up front, the very beginning, but the problem in America isn't so much what people don't know, it's what people think they know that just ain't so. So now that you know this, now that we've talked about infinite banking, talked about the mindset, now this quote kind of comes back and makes a lot more sense. All right, guys, so that's the presentation. Any questions you guys have, go ahead and put them in the chat box, the Q&A box, or you can call it a day. And I'll put my call link in there one more time and my email address. And so if you guys also, the PDF books, either email me or click that link and you should be able to grab them there. But yeah, so it's the Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, and then we have some other resources we can put inside there. Otha, yes, you can. Yeah, you can watch this again. It is recorded. So you either email me and I can send you the link, or I believe we put this on Chris's YouTube channel. So Chris Naugle, subscribe to his YouTube channel. And I believe we put these in there as well. All right. Well, great talking with all you guys. Really appreciate the back and forth. But yeah, anything you guys need from me, just let me know. Gary, do you have people using a line of credit to open their IBC? Yeah. Yep, Gary, we do have that. And so, okay, a HELOC is a line of credit as well. But you can do that. You just got to understand the math and the cash flow to make sure that it makes sense for you. And what you can do if you have a HELOC or even a line of credit, depending on what kind of a bank it is, you can do velocity banking on the line of credit to knock that line of credit down while taking your IBC policy and putting that to work somewhere else. But yeah, you can do that. Frenchie, is this the same as the Elevation Group? Yeah, same concept. Yeah, as that concept, yes. We call it elevation banking. Yeah, cash flow banking. Yeah, same concept, except now it's a lot more refined. So this is what I do for a lot of my focus. But yeah. Leroy, yep, no problem, man, not a problem. All right, guys, any last minute questions? Going once, going twice. All right, well, I look forward to hopping on a call with some of you guys. I would love to answer questions, see what we can do for you. But with that, have a great rest of your week. If you guys are celebrating Thanksgiving, have a happy Thanksgiving and stay safe.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We're putting up tons of them, but I think if you like this one, you'll probably like that video as well. Not only that, I've got a book that I created, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, where we actually show you what the wealthy do in the game they play with money. I want you to have that for free. And if you want to know about all my new videos coming up, click that alert button. Actually, smash that alert button, and you'll be notified every time we put a new video. So we'll see you on the next episode.